You want what?
Papa.
You want to eat? It's not ready. It's not ready. Okay. I'm gonna take a few minutes and just kind of catch you up to speed. So we came back from a little trip. Something had been all in our small family garden, had eaten all of our corn, and immediately I start thinking raccoon. Just the way that the corn was eaten, I think a raccoon or a possum. So we actually started that next night baiting with eggs to try to catch that raccoon. I have caught varmints in a live trap before using eggs. Really simple and easy way to catch things or figure out where they're at is to just lay out a couple of whole eggs. Well, you know, the location I put them at, those eggs are actually still there, you know, 5 days later. Nothing came. So I moved back to a wood line that's not too far from the garden spot, and I actually baited with shad. I baited with a bait that we would normally catch catfish with. I happen to think, you know, these animals, a lot of raccoons and things, they actually eat fish. So I went down to the freezer and got some shad laid out along that wood line. I put it in 2 different locations, and one pile got ate. So the next evening, I put out a couple of shad and I added an egg to it just to see, was it in fact a raccoon or a possum, or was it just a household cat that was coming by at night? Cat probably wouldn't touch the egg. Well, the eggshell got left, the shad was gone. I said, you know what? It's time, we're moving the trap in. To not make our animal trap shy, I went ahead and baited with an egg and a shad, but then I stuck our trap up into vines and saplings and stuff. I went ahead and opened the door and I just laid a shad right inside. That way the animal could get used to the trap being there. In plans that the next night, he would be able to come in and I would have the bait in the back of the trap, and you know, he would come in, he wouldn't think anything about it, he's used to it, he's comfortable, and we would trap him. But I walked down here this morning, we got a little surprise. This guy got greedy and he thought that maybe there was something else in the back of the trap. If I get the handle up, and we're just gonna try to ease him out of here. What is he?
Yeah.
He's a possum.
Is he a possum fish?
No, he's not a fish. He's a possum.
But are we gonna keep him up here, you hope?
We're gonna figure out something to do with him. Daddy doesn't know yet.
Hey, possum. Yeah, and hey, possum. I love you, possum.
Might have just axed the plan I did have for the possum.
That he smells pretty stinky.
He does? Come here, Joe.
Jojo.
What have we got? Don't reach in there. That's not a kitty cat.
What is he now?
He's a possum.
Jojo, that's a possum, and he'll just walk and that very long tail. And he can wrap around trees, and he can sleep up there sometimes. And he has baby shark teeth. Mama, there's a possum in a trap.
What is that?
And
Possum.
He was possum, Joe. Jojo, it's not a kitty cat, it's a possum. I thought possums were fish.
No, possum's not a fish. What kind of fish do we normally like to catch?
Catfish.
What kind of fish was that we had at Lolly and Pop's that time, and you keep wanting to see another one? Had that long nose on it.
A spoonbill.
A spoonbill. Anyway, yeah, my son loves spoonbills, and he thinks every fish is now a spoonbill. So, live traps. Live traps have a lot of uses. Effective for getting rid of common, you know, varmints around your house. You can put out some cheap bait, some eggs, maybe some fish, some shad, sardines. You can take a can of sardines. You just crack it enough to let it drip in there, and the animal has to go all the way to the back. Then they're gonna fiddle with that can, trying to get it open and trying to get the food out, and they'll trip the trap. So Yeah, I think this is great for my kids. You know, they've never seen a possum before. I try to show them as much wildlife as I can, give them those up close encounters that, you know, otherwise they might never get to be this close to a possum. My only concern with him right now is it's late July. We would probably not harvest him until, say, November or December. In the cold months, when I trust that a lot of the parasites would have been killed off by the cold, he'd be healthier, he'd have a prettier coat, which would mean that if we decided to do a pelt and tan it, that would be an option then when he had a much better coat. Right now he's kind of scraggly looking. Invest in these live traps if you want to just, you know, teach your kids about some animals. A keynote that I would advise: bait the area first, then introduce the trap. Once the bait starts coming up gone, then open the trap, and then start placing your bait in the trap. That way they're used to the ever-changing surrounding. And we'll look at maybe feeding him out until cold weather gets here. See what kind of table fare he'll be. All the recipes I found suggest doing some type of brine. And so instead of your typical just water and salt brine, I'm actually going to try a, it's called Kinder's Butcher's brine and rub kit. So we're actually going to try that. So what I want to do is I want to get this to a boil and get the brine, get the salt and season to dissolve in the water. And then we're going to let it come back down to room temperature, add in our possum, and let him soak in that for about 24 to 48 hours. Suggested that when you want what? You want to eat? It's not ready. It's not ready. Okay. We're just going to take it out of our brine water, set it over in our baking dish. Now, to this dish, I have added 2 cups of fresh water, so not water from our brine. And we're going to add that to our preheating oven. We're going to start a skillet warming over medium-low heat, adding in a little bit of olive oil. Let's peel 6 medium sweet potatoes. We're going to chop them into 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch cubes. We are going to add them to our oil that's heating up. And I'm going to crank my heat up to medium-high, and we'll start roasting those potatoes. Next up, we're going to do 1 butternut squash. Now that we've got it peeled, we're going to cap it with a knife on each end. Then we're going to split it in half. Take a tablespoon, remove the seeds from the inside. Then we'll cut that into pieces just like our sweet potatoes. We're going to add those to the skillet. And we're going to roast those until they start getting a little bit tender, and then I'm going to cover them while we wait on our possum to finish up. And while our sweet potatoes are cooking, we're going to go ahead and chop up 2 Honeycrisp apples. And next we're going to add those to a skillet that's heating with about 1/2 cup of water. And mixed in with our apples, we're going to add about 3/4 of a cup of dried cranberries and a healthy dash of cinnamon. And we're going to let that cook over medium-low heat while our sweet potatoes continue. Okay, the next ingredient we want to get going, we've got our apples and cranberries, we've got our butternut squash and sweet potatoes. We're going to get about 1/2 pound of breakfast sausage, and we're going to get that browning over medium heat. And we're just going to try this. I think the sausage will really complement the apples. Okay, we're going to peek in at our possum. He's been going about 30 minutes now. Meat's beginning to pull back from the bone just a little bit, and it actually does smell pretty good with the seasonings that it was brined in. So we're going to stick that back in there. We'll check on it again in about another 30 minutes. Well, it may not taste good when we get done, but it certainly does look and smell delicious. Definitely has all the flavors of fall. Okay, so our apples are starting to get a little bit soft, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off on those. Our sweet potatoes and our butternut squash are starting to soften up a little bit. Okay, so I had the idea to add a little bit of brown sugar to the sweet potatoes, but unfortunately we're out of brown sugar. So about the only other sweetener we use in the house is stevia, and I'm just going to add about a heaping tablespoon of that over the top, just to sweeten them a little bit. Okay, we're ready to drain our sausage. So everything I have ever read or heard is that possum is incredibly fatty, so we don't want to add any extra fat with our sausage. All right, we're going to go ahead and add our drained sausage to the apples and cranberries, just because I need someplace else to put them. All right, so possum's been going on about 1 hour and 15 minutes. Doesn't that look wonderful? He's not what I would call fork tender yet. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna flip him over and get the bottom side down in the juices pretty good. And we may have wound up needing to boil this guy. Everybody said roast it with sweet potatoes, so I roasted it. But that is not tender at all. Gonna send this message to my sister. We'll see what her reply is. All right, we're gonna go ahead and add our butternut squash and sweet potatoes to our bacon dish. Next, we'll add our apple, cranberry, and sausage mixture. So I'm gonna go ahead and say by looking, this is a lot more filler in the dish than I think we're gonna have possum to go with it. We are gonna give our filling just a try before we go any further. Just see what that part of it tastes like. It's not bad. We just need the possum in there now. I'm gonna let my wife taste test the filling because she's already said she is not doing the possum. So I'm gonna let her taste test this, tell us what she thinks we need to add to it, if anything. And as soon as our possum's ready, we're gonna pull it off the bone, throw it on top, put our biscuit layer on over that, bake it in the oven, and then we're gonna eat. Folks, that is a lot of work for very little reward. I don't know if y'all can tell, but there's not a lot of meat there. Gonna come through with a food chopper, try to get it chopped up some. It is incredibly fatty, very fatty. And that is part of what made it so hard to get off the bone, just because it was slippery. I think for this type of eating, boiling would be much better. Boil this joker down to where he'll fall off the bones and save yourself a lot of work. Now this would not be a true possum catch, clean, and cook if I didn't really try by it before it actually went into the pot pie with all the other stuff. So here goes. Well, she didn't answer the text, but she actually showed up at the house. So this is my sister, and we have one brave soul plus a dog. We have one and another dog. We have one brave soul who's going to try the possum.
My friend sent me with backup pizza in case the possum doesn't work out.
Probably. I hope there's enough for two. And another dog. Come on, Reese. Come on. And that's our dog. So next up, we're just getting our possum meat added to our filling. Last up, we're just going to take some canned biscuits. That'll be our layer that goes on our top. Give them a good pop and start getting them spread out on our dish. All right, and there's what it's going to look like going into our oven, and all we're going to do is get the biscuits cooked on top, and it should be ready to eat. Well, we're among friends as we get ready to try out the meager meal. As you can see, nobody else showed up to the table, but we are going to dive in. I do think next time I'll be using some croissants instead of biscuits for the topping, because they didn't really fluff out the way I thought. All right, so I've masked this dish the best I can with all the flavors of fall. This is what we're digging into. But we're gonna go with first impressions, and you know what? Guests eat first. So let's go ahead and try that.
All right, do you think just possum or possum with some of the...
I tried just the possum and I didn't give them a review. I just made a face, so.
Oh, dear. A little nervous here, folks. Bon appetit. I'm gonna have to chew on this one.
Yeah, that's what I said when I was cutting it up, that it was a little bit chewy. But we're gonna go with the possum and biscuit in the first bite. I mean, I think definitely boil it, pressure cook it, or put it in a crock pot. Get the meat tender, and the flavor's okay.
Yeah, I didn't feel it was too gamey or anything. Like, I mean,
I think the brine's definitely a good idea. Got a lot of possum in this bite. Check that out. She didn't quit with just one bite. So I don't necessarily like the way that I chose to cook the possum itself, but I like the dish. I like the fall flavors. You got the apple, the cranberry, very little seasoning. We did wind up putting salt on it. It's pretty good. So be sure to comment down below if you would try possum. And if you have tried possum, comment below. How did you cook it? What did I do wrong? What would you change about the recipe? Give me some ideas for the next time I try it. And like always, we'll see you next time, right here on the J-Line. And don't forget to
Click the subscribe button.